Hi, everyone. Welcome. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us in our hybrid family connection workshop at the ATC. We are so sorry that we ran a little behind, but we're here now. I'd like to go over some housekeeping items for our in-person guests before we begin. If you can please silence your cell phones, since this is a recorded session. And then if you need to use the restroom, please feel free to use the door in the back to the left. Our Q&A portion of the workshop will begin at the end of the presentation. Okay, panelists will address as many questions received as possible. We will share all the questions collected with our panelists to address at a later time if we do not get to yours during the Q&A. Be sure to provide your email address so we can relay the answers to your question. Contact information for our office and Virginia Beach Human Services will be on the screen at the end of the workshop. Thank you again for joining us. Please give us a few minutes to allow our virtual guests to join via Zoom, and we'll get started shortly. All right. So again, my name is Danielle Pham, and I am a family outreach representative with the Office of Family and Community Engagement for Virginia Beach School District. I will be hosting today's workshop. Today, we will learn how to develop strategies to build effective communication with our children, where both parent and child can be better understood and be heard. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce the two panelists from Virginia Beach Human Services. Today, you will hear from Tiana Minter and Laura Wiedema, who are both licensed clinical social workers working in child and youth behavioral health. Tiana Minters, she has 14 years of experience working with children, adolescents, and their caregivers who have complex trauma, mood concerns, behavioral challenges, and other concerns. She holds certifications in parent-child interaction therapy and trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. She is also trained in eye movement desensitization and reprocessing EMDR therapy. Currently, she serves as supervisor of the Rapid Response Program, Mobile Crisis Program, and Intake Program with Child and Youth Behavioral Health Services. Laura has over 10 years of experience working with children, adolescents, caregivers, and families who have experienced complex trauma, depression, anxiety, grief, and loss, family and relationship issues, ADHD, and so forth. She has worked in a wide variety of settings, including outpatient therapy, therapeutic day treatment, case management, crisis intervention, and intensive in-home counseling. She is trained in eye movement desensitization and reprocessing EMDR and play therapy. She is certified in parent-child interaction therapy and trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. She also provides training in child-adult relationship enhancement. I would also like to thank Mary Hunt, our Family and Community Engagement Administrative Office Associate, for coordinating this workshop and providing technical assistance and support. Without further ado, please welcome Tiana Minter.
Thank you, Danielle. Good evening. Okay, so we're going to start off with a short video to highlight what our talk will be about tonight. We're here to talk to you today about effective communication with your child in today's world. This video depicts how impactful adult behavior is to children. So it's good for us to think about how and what we're communicating to our kids. Learning healthy communication habits is key to children's healthy development. So let's take a look.
It looks like rain again today. Dark clouds gather sky. Don't know how to talk to you, just know how we say it.
All right, we're looking for the video, I mean, the presentation. Nope. Here we go. So kids learn and imitate behaviors and communication styles that parents display, and even when you think that your kids may not be paying attention, they are. Here, we highlighted common stressors that we are hearing from the kiddos that we see in our department. Safety is a big concern when we're talking about recent school violence and shootings. We hear a lot of kids talking about, fears that they have related to that. Also, our children who identify as LGBTQ+, they may not feel safe or like they can communicate and explore the confusing feelings that they may be having. The racial issues that we're seeing in the country right now for substance usage is a big issue with our middle and high schoolers. And so many of our kiddos are talking about are needing assistance in how to guide or how to speak about these things to their parents, as well as handle these issues with their peers. And of course, the peer pressure, which is directly related to the substance abuse. Kids are vulnerable to pressures to look or act a certain way. And sometimes they may participate or do things that they may not feel comfortable doing.
Okay, so what does effective communication do? First of all, it does decrease behavioral concerns. So positive attention increases positive behavior. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. It also enhances the child-adult relationship. And so it strengthens the bond between the adult and the child, increases warmth, trust, and enjoyment. It also makes kids feel safe and calm. So when kids know that they can come to you to vent or to seek advice, this makes them feel safe and calm. When they know what to expect from you, it makes them feel safe. It also improves self-esteem. So it makes kids feel good about themselves when they know that the adult cares about them and their challenges. It improves communication with peers. As we saw in the video, adults model communication styles for their kids. So if you improve your communication, it will trickle down to your kids and improve their communication and their social relationships as well. It also helps children to effectively communicate their own needs. So when adults model healthy communication skills, it improves their communication skills, and adults can teach them assertive communication and how to stand up for themselves in a respectful way. It also makes the home environment less stressful. So you'll find that there's less arguing, improved relationships, there's good, healthy boundaries. And it also decreases a lot of frustrating behaviors that parents deal with, such as sneaking or lying or stealing. So having really productive discussions with your kids will help them to trust you, to turn to you for advice and share things with you more frequently, and avoid hiding things from you. Okay, so we're just going to take a look at how it improves behavior. As you heard in the intro, Tiana and I are both trained in something called parent-child interaction therapy, or PCIT, and it's an evidence-based treatment for young kids with behavioral concerns. So we work really directly with the parents during this type of therapy. And we do live coaching while they're interacting with their child. And this really helps strengthen the relationship with the child, between the child and the caregiver. And it also helps to decrease some unwanted behaviors. It improves or increases the confidence that the parent has with use of effective discipline strategies. So this is just some outcome measures of the PCIT program that we use. So it measures the intensity and the frequency of the child's behavior over the course of treatment. So these graphs really capture a decrease in behavioral issues when effective communication strategies are being used by the parent. So as you can see, the points on the graph are trending downward, which means that the reported behavior concerns are decreasing over time.
So we wanted to start off by talking about the less effective communication methods that we often see from parents. These things, a lot of us do, and they may not be necessarily like outright bad, but they can shut down, open communication between an adult and a child. So the first one is talking too much. Sometimes we talk a lot. The child may not be saying much, so we want to fill the space with words or questions. And it's uncomfortable a lot of times for us to sit in silence, especially when we're trying to have an uncomfortable conversation. So it's important to practice getting comfortable with silence. Silence is okay. It allows for the child to be able to think through their thoughts and find the words that they may want to communicate to you, and it can allow you to do the same. Too many questions. So unnecessary questions or too many questions can make kids shut down. There's a couple different questions that we ask, or types of questions that we ask. Informational questions, asking for who, what, when, where, why. Unintentional questions when we tip our voice up at the end of a statement. So that can be an example of, you put that there, and so it may turn a statement into a question. And also when we're busy and trying to multitask and do a bunch of things and our kids may be talking to us, we may not be fully listening. And so it's very easy to turn the last couple words that we heard into a question to make it seem like we're listening. But kids pick up on that. They pick up on that they're not being heard, or the question may throw them off, right? And what they're trying to communicate with you. So it's important that we try to limit the questions and work on listening a little bit better, which we'll get to in the next couple slides. Leading the conversation, lecturing, avoiding uncomfortable topics. Those are all, I think, things that we try to do to fill up the time or to try to get our child to communicate with us, right? But those things oftentimes we find will shut children down. We are going to take a look at an example of what I just discussed.
Stop. Yeah, when we go to bed. No, it's not a family. It is, okay? It's there you go. We're gonna put it here. Really cool. A little more than that. That's cool. You like it? Here, you want me to do more? Bigger than that. Yeah, cool. Yeah. There you go. does that look like? Or a bird, snake maybe? Have you ever seen a snake? Have you seen a snake before? No, snake. It's your turn. Okay. So you never seen a snake? You know what a snake is? What is it? Like that. Oh, you gotta move this over so it's not bird.
What did you guys notice? I'm gonna ask for a little bit of audience participation. What did you notice about that interaction? A lot of parent talking, which led to the child not talking. The interaction was not a bad interaction, but she very much just looked to the parent to lead, and she wasn't fully engaged in the toys, and she just kind of just sat there. And so even though like on the first look, right, it's not too bad, but if we want to open up the lines of communication with our kids, we have to make a little bit of tweaks to how we're interacting.
All right, so we talked a little bit about some less effective communication strategies. So let's talk about what we could do. So there's a number of things that we can do that will increase a positive relationship with your child and just create healthier communication habits. We've got active listening. A lot of us have heard of this before. Sometimes it's referred to as whole body listening. So we're not just using our ears to listen, we're using our whole body, all of our senses. So this is when we might repeat something back to the child to let them know that they're listening or that you're listening and that you're understanding them. It could look like reflecting or paraphrasing what they just said. It could be saying something like, it sounds like you're frustrated with the assignment your teacher gave you. It could be nonverbal cues, like nodding your head or making eye contact. And just, also to note, it's hard for us to actively listen when we're distracted. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we want to make sure that we're completely free from distractions when we're talking to our children. Another good strategy to use is to model open communication. So have conversations at the dinner table about your day. You could share highs and lows. Of course, we want to have conversation that is appropriate for the age ears that are listening. And when you mess up, just own up to it and tell your child about it. Apologize for your mistakes. This reinforces that nobody's perfect and that adults mess up too. When confronting your child about a misbehavior, use a positive sandwich. So for example, you might say something like, I really like that you stood up for your friend in school today. Next time, please let the teacher handle it instead of jumping into the fight. I know you care about your friends and want things to be fair. So you started off with something positive about the child, something that you liked about them, gave a little bit of constructive criticism or feedback, and then you ended it with something positive as well. You could say something like, that's really nice that you wanted to buy a present for your friend's birthday. Please ask me for money first before taking it. I like when you follow the house rules. So we really just want to model some really good communication skills that our kids will imitate. Also, you want to make yourself available, like I had mentioned before. So you want to try to spend some uninterrupted time with your child. So put the phone down, turn the TV off, etc. One-on-one time with your child, even if for just a few minutes a day, can be very impactful and it can improve the relationship significantly. We can't expect kids to put their phones down and use eye contact when we don't do it ourselves, right? So if you're able to keep the other kids occupied, take turns spending some one-on-one time with each kid, or have one child take a turn with each caregiver and switch if you have that opportunity. Your one-on-one time with a younger child is also going to look a little bit different than with an older child. You're going to want to get down on their level and do an activity with them, something that they like to do. We also don't want to avoid difficult or uncomfortable topics. So when we appear comfortable with talking about hard things, then your child is going to feel comfortable talking to you about hard things. Like Tiana had mentioned before, silence can be uncomfortable. And sometimes as adults, we like to fill in silence with extra words to make things less awkward. This can cause kids to shut down or share less. So we want to pause for a little bit and let your child know that you're here and you're ready to listen when they're ready to share with you. Another thing we want to do is validate feelings. We want to offer advice when it's welcomed. It's okay to ask if they want your advice. A solution is not always needed or wanted right away. Sometimes kids just want to be heard and their feelings validated without being offered solutions. I know in my own experience, sometimes when I vent to a friend or a family member, I just want to feel validated. I'm not always looking for, advice or a solution. So things like, that must be really hard. I can understand why you're frustrated. Those are good things to say. Rather than being offered solutions like, you should do this, or have you tried this? Why didn't you do it this way? We want to avoid stuff like that. We also want to praise the positives. This is a big one. What we know about praise is that it is way more powerful in changing behavior than punishment or fear. So behaviors that are praised tend to increase. All praise is good, but very specific praises work best. So if I were to say, good job, thank you, I like that, awesome. What am I praising you for? No clue, right? Yeah. I mean, it probably still felt kind of good, but I wasn't specific at all with what I liked that you were doing. So specific praise is telling the child exactly what you like about the behavior. I like how you shared the markers with me. Thank you for putting your toys away without me having to tell you. Good job listening so quickly. Or I'm so proud that you've been working hard to bring your grades up. All those are very specific things to say to kids that tell them exactly what you like. Praise increases their self-esteem and it makes both of you feel good. When you praise your child, it's never going to make you feel bad. When you praise your spouse, it's never going to make you feel bad. When you praise anybody, it's never going to make you feel bad. So praise is a good thing to do. Another thing we want to do is to be predictable. So we want to be consistent with your reactions to your child's behavior. So the more predictable your reactions are to your child's behavior, the more predictable your child's behavior is going to be. Okay, so if your child has a tantrum in the checkout line at Food Lion because she wants candy, and then sometimes you ignore it, sometimes you give in, and sometimes you yell at them, your child's going to be more likely to have a tantrum next time. So if you're consistent with the way that you respond to your child, they're going to learn not to test limits. And when kids know the limits and the boundaries, it makes them feel safe. So they know what to expect. So a good thing to do is to set limits and follow through with them and just be predictable. Do we have this one open? All right, so we're going to watch a little video here from Inside Out.
Here's to a new deal.
Sorry about that, Ed.
Where follows your death. Breathing feels weightless. Here's to unlocking absolute confidence.
Hey, you okay?
What's in the tank? Hey, jiggles, huh? Here comes the jiggle. Boy. Hey, you.
Hey, should
It's something that we love. Goodness, don't make it feel worse. It's all of my left to cry.
Once we do that, I get breakfast twice that day. We were friends.
Okay, so I know that was a little bit low. Hopefully you heard that loud enough. So, oh, we got to replay it again. Sorry. Okay. Do you want to check the volume?
So do we have to adjust the volume?
Do you want me to turn it up a little bit?
Top right?
Mhm.
Versus.
Mhm.
See share sound.
Oh, we weren't sure the sound. Okay. Where is that? Let's see. Okay. I can try to turn it up some if you want.
I don't think it's not online.
It's okay. Okay, so sorry if you couldn't hear that online. So for you in the audience here, what were some things that you noticed? There was a little bit of less effective communication strategies in that video and some more effective. Was there anything that you noticed that joy or sadness was doing?
Well, Joy was trying to redirect the initial problem.
Yes,
Sadness was validating his feeling and kind of.
absolutely. Very good. Excellent. Yeah. So Joy was a little more solution focused. She was distracting and diverting from the situation, not addressing the elephant in the room, right? See what I did there? So she was like, don't make him feel worse. Not validating the feelings. You're exactly right. Sadness, listened, validated his feelings, took the time to pay attention, really empathized with him, avoided questions, but got a lot of answers and actively listened. So yeah, so that's just a little example of some of the less effective and more effective communication strategies.
Inside Out was a great movie to model a lot of things for
Oh,
our
yeah.
kids. We love it. in therapy.
Absolutely. So we want to go ahead and take some questions now. We do have one more really brief video to end with if we have time, but we can do some questions first. I think there was two online. Okay. Any questions? I know that there were two that were submitted online that I can read if you have them with me. Okay. So somebody asked, how do I discuss the uncomfortable conversations with my child? And hopefully you got some answers to that just by, listening to the presentation. But one of the things that we really suggest doing too is it often helps to kind of be participating in an activity with your child, something that they really enjoy doing. It could be something calming or relaxing, something that will allow direct communication also between the parent and the child, but also channel some of the nervous energy into an activity. We kind of would like to avoid things that don't encourage direct communication, like video games or computer or book. But for younger kids, maybe some blocks or Legos or magnetics or coloring. For older kids or teens, you might want to do an art or craft activity. You might go on an outing for ice cream. You just want to make sure that it's a private space where they're going to feel comfortable talking to you about things. We also just don't want to force it. Okay. So your agenda when you're talking to your child about something uncomfortable might be to discuss a particular topic or find out their thoughts or feelings about it, but they might not be ready for that yet. Your job is to provide a welcoming and safe environment for them to talk when they're ready. So any extra questions or investigation or lectures might push them farther away from you. And also just keep in mind that the conversation is likely not going to go the way that you planned it the first time or at all. So if they are resistant or they tend to disengage, just let them. At least they're going to have the topic to think about. You introduced it. And you also sent that message that you are available and that you're, a safe place to come to talk about things.
Any questions about that question? No? Okay. So the second question we received was, how can I talk to my teenager about decreasing his time with computer games, social media, watching TV, etc., and what motivation can I use? I think this is definitely a hot topic that we see in the therapy room. Social media, phones, computers, they are engaging, they are stimulating for our kids. So oftentimes we see little people or young people, adults who spend a lot of time on them. And so it's okay to limit electronics. If you make it optional to participate or if you make it an option to participate with electronics for a limited amount of time, then kids are going to do that, right? Also, I think it's important that you engage your kid in a common interest activity. So if they are a gamer, right, and want to spend a lot of time playing video games, look for things in the community that could attract that gamer interest in your kiddo. So whether that's like something dealing with coding or some type of game club or something that you and him can join together and learn together, and learn about, in this example, gaming from a different angle as opposed to just being in front of the TV playing games all the time. Get creative in your approach to offer other activities, and then make a plan of how you guys can continue to engage and build on that love together.
So,
Yeah.
so one of our online participants asked, my son is encouraged to learn only if he can be awarded for everything he does. This is very difficult because I cannot award him for everything. Any suggestions as to how to handle?
That's a good question. Very good question. So yeah, so that, when we reward a behavior that hasn't happened yet, that sometimes is called bribery. So we are kind of reinforcing the trying instead of the doing in that situation. So it's not as effective because what it's doing is it's reinforcing whatever behavior is happening at that time. So for example, if you are in the car on the way to the store and you've got two kids in the seat and they're, kicking each other and they're yelling and screaming, and you say, okay, well, if you guys behave and if you calm down and settle down, I'll get you, a treat at the store. What that's doing, it may work, it may not work, right? They may be well behaved in the store, they may not, but what it's doing is it's reinforcing the likelihood that the next time that you're in the car on the way to the store, it's going to cause an issue in the backseat with the kicking and the yelling and the screaming. So a better way to handle that would be to really point out, use those specific praises to praise everything that you like that the child's doing, and do some randomized rewards. So when you catch them doing something really good that you like, then praise them and reward them at that time. And then the likelihood that they will do that again will increase pretty significantly.
Right. So we don't want to make rewards predictable. We want them to be random, like Laura just said. And also if a child is saying, I won't do this unless you give me this, right? You can set out specific consequences for that behavior. So earlier in the presentation, we talked about being predictable in our responses. So you can say, right, you have a choice not to do this, but if you are not doing whatever it is that he needs to be doing at the time, then this is your specific consequence. There's no arguing, there's no bribing back and forth, there's no negotiating. This is what's going to happen, and we shut that behavior down. We won't, of course, we can go into a whole 2-hour lecture on how to reinforce positive behaviors, but the important thing is to be predictable and consistent with the consequence. The behaviors may increase for a little bit because they're trying to get their way, but as long as you're continuing to be consistent, then the behaviors would decrease and we get more, I guess, acceptance of specific commands.
The next question is, do you have any advice for military parents with kids who move a lot and are unable to build meaningful relationships or friends?
You're looking at me to answer that. That is a good one. I think that we start by modeling meaningful relationships within our family of origin, right? Because that is the consistent people in our lives. And so by modeling like that open communication and spending that positive time together, we can teach important social skills with our kiddos. As far as connecting with others outside, I guess outside the family, one of the positive things is that we are in a very big military area. So it's easy to connect kids with other kids who may be going through similar experiences, right? So getting them involved in activities with other kids who can relate and they connect on that way.
There's a question back there too.
Could you start with the fixed ratio?
So this is a follow-up question regarding the reinforcement,
Sure.
right? Can you start on a fixed ratio of 1 and reward for every good behavior and then slowly fade out?
Yeah, great question. Yes, especially when a child is you're teaching a new behavior to a child, it is good to reward it, as much as possible. It's good that the reward comes after the good behavior, though. We don't really want to reward something before it happens, but that is a good idea to reward them more frequently in the beginning. And once the behavior is learned and they're doing it more frequently, then kind of decrease the frequency of the rewards. Good question. Yeah.
The next one is how do I get my teen to engage in conversations regarding negative friendships and peer pressure?
We had one of these questions prepared already. So I think the important thing when it comes to approaching teens about like negative friendships and negative interactions is not to lecture them about how these things are negative, right? We can sit down and engage with them about their interest in, we're gonna use friendships, for example, right? What they like about their friends and why why they feel like this is a good support for them and things like that. And you may learn some interesting things that your teen is looking for in friendships. Oftentimes we hear teens talk about how friends can listen or friends offer unconditional support and things like that. Once you're able to build that trust in that conversation on topic of friends, we can start to slowly drop in or point out examples or ask questions, not a lot of questions. I know we said that earlier about specific examples of negative influences that the friends may have. So if the friend is getting in trouble at school, you can ask your teen, what their thoughts are, what their values are regarding behaviors in school, and then link it to, well, such and such, you told me such and such did this. I wonder what you think about that. And that can allow them to reflect and make those connections on their own.
What are some early actions we can take to offset the possibility of addictive behaviors with less evasive activities?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah.
What are some early actions we can take to offset the possibility of addictive behaviors with less evasive activities? Examples included are video games, social media, etc.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a really good question. So addictive. So I guess I kind of want to ask a follow-up question with that. But, that might be something that we can do kind of a Q&A type up and respond back once we kind of think about that a little bit more, and maybe we can follow up with another question if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can get. Yeah.
Any tips for working with your teen and peer pressure without saying their peer is negative?
That's similar to what we had just discussed, in that, so along with what we had just said before about exposing them or, having these open conversations is, having them exposed to other groups of peers or other activities and things that could pique their interest and, take their interest away from like maybe a negative peer. So, I'm trying to think of an example of an activity that I've done before with teens in the therapy room that are heavily influenced by negative peers. I guess it really is being able to sit down and learn what makes your team work, right? What piques their interest, what makes them excited, and seeing if there are things out there that you can help connect them with that will draw their attention away from that peer group.
So, can we bring that down to like elementary school?
Yes.
Everyone's talking about teens.
Uh-huh.
Elementary schooler, and she doesn't have a phone. She wants one, but so sometimes I'll let her get on my phone and she'll chat with her friends. But I noticed, sometimes there's like a little, like she'll get into the group chat with some of the girls and there's that like catty girl bullying that's going on. 1 minute they're friends, and the next minute they're like, why are you talking to me? I'm like, I don't know how to approach that, like without just being like, I don't like those girls, don't talk to me.
Right. Yes, I have an elementary girl too, and sometimes I have to catch myself, even though I am a therapist all day, right? But that oftentimes what I do with my daughter at home is I ask, what makes a good friend, right? What do you think are important characteristics, or bring it down to whatever, language they understand. What are important characteristics in friends, and let them list those things out and then connect it to the group that they're engaging with. It's also, especially with elementary and middle, right, modeling the opposite behaviors, right? So in your conversations with your daughter, talking about things that maybe you have seen they will say like that, that may impact her self-esteem, right? It's like saying about it in an opposite way, right? You're very smart, or I love that outfit that you have on today, or something, right, to improve that self-esteem. And then just modeling that positive communication between her, because the more she has it at home, the more empowered she will feel to use it in her peer group, right?
Well, I get so proud because she'll get back on there and she's like, you're not being nice to
Yep.
that girl. But then next thing I know, she's like, can I text my group chat?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, right. Right. And that's part of the nature of them just kind of finding their way in the social, right, social world. And so some of that we have to let them learn through trial and error on their own, and kind of be there to pick up for them when they need it. It breaks your heart, and it's hard to see, but if they don't learn how to navigate it now, it's going to be a nightmare later on,
I think it's good, like Tiana said, to anything that you can catch that you can praise that she is being a good friend, any quality of good friendship, or praise, I really like that you stood up for your friend there, that you did this or that, or you walked away when your friends were saying negative things, right? Peer pressure is a real thing. They're going to get caught in that a lot. It's going to be a battle that they face all through school. So any way that you can kind of just model and reinforce those good friendship skills is great.
Right. And giving them those words, and so giving them those words through praise, right, allows her to be more empowered to use it in that friend group.
Next question is, how do you explain to your child when you have to discipline them for something you deem inappropriate, but another parent does nothing to their child for doing the same thing? Then my child wants to know why they got in trouble, but the other child did not.
Because I'm your mom and I said that.
I mean, just be honest about it. There's certain rules that we have in our house, and there's this just kind of building up why, you have these certain values, in your home, and modeling that for them. And, you know, just be honest. Yeah, I get why you would feel frustrated that your friends don't have the same, you know, consequences as you, or the rules are different in their house. But, you know, this is the reason why we do things in our house this way. So I think that's probably one of the best ways to approach that.
Just want to add to that, when we have those types of conversations with our kids, it's not in the middle of the discipline. Okay, if we're having those conversations in the middle of the discipline, it's allowing room for negotiation and arguments. And so we give the discipline and a consequence right there, let it pass, and then we sit them down later and have the discussion and model that open communication of why, you know, the rules are the rules and why it's important for things to operate this way in our home. Yeah, what we find with our kiddos is they will negotiate and try to wiggle their way out of stuff by using that against their parents in the middle of, you know, them trying to implement certain consequences.
Next question is, any tips for maximizing effective communication with children who have experienced trauma and their response is to shut down rather than to communicate verbally?
That's
I
a
mean,
great one.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And I think we kind of, you know, we went through that in the presentation as far as, you know, not asking too many questions, not doing too much investigating, just kind of being there to listen, maybe, you know, engage in an activity like coloring or drawing or something that they really like to do. Is a really important, you know, a good way to kind of get them to open up a little bit. Just don't force it. You know, it'll happen when it's ready. Sometimes when we try to force things or push things out of kids, it's just, it pushes them farther away, really.
Yeah, if they are in a mood, right, you can just simply say something like, oh, it looks like you are very frustrated or angry right now. And just leave it at that. They may not say anything, they may open up and start spewing their hearts out. It's really when they feel comfortable, but it's very important to communicate to them that you're there, right? And that we can, and that you are ready to listen whenever they're ready to talk. Mm-hmm. It takes time, even in a therapy room, it takes time.
And it might mean that they need some additional support too. They might need some counseling or therapy to help them too, depending on what's going on. So you could seek that as well.
Next question is, how can we advise middle school students in situations when they don't know what something means? Don't want them to agree or repeat if they don't really understand the words.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that when it comes down to them, because kids they're going to hear stuff, right, from their friends. They're going to hear stuff from their peers at school, on the internet, through social media. So kind of keeping the communication with you open and allowing them to come to you and ask you anything is the best, you know, just describe or explaining to them that, you know, I'm here. If you have a question about anything or you don't know what it means, you're not going to get in trouble. Come home, talk to me about it. Tell me what it is. I might know what it means. I might not. We can kind of work through it together. And if it's inappropriate, that's something that you might have to handle as well. But just, you know, you want them to kind of learn from you before they learn, you know, from others. Yeah.
That question.
Yeah.
So middle school or even elementary, high school, they come up with these random words that we've never heard before. Rizzo is something, or Rizzo, I've learned, but is there a specific place that parents can look up words that we don't understand?
I know Urban Dictionary is one of the popular sites that you can look up where they add new slang terms.
Yeah, I did Urban and he said that I got the old definition of that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
How it's
So
there.
then you have to ask your kid, right? Trust me, we ask a lot, right?
You're saying we need a parent support group for that.
Yeah.
So Urban Dictionary is probably the best.
Probably.
Okay.
And asking your kid,
Okay.
because you'll learn, like, just
Yeah.
even in different regions, even in the 7 cities. In one city, it may mean something, and the next, it may mean something else. So,
Okay.
Okay. So this one's going to be the last one
Okay.
for the live Q&A. My son is a perfectionist. Do you have any recommendations to address feelings of being overwhelmed and frustrated if he doesn't get a perfect score or APs in all his classes?
I'm sorry, you can finish. The first thing that came to mind is working on praising him outside of the perfection, right? So looking for other things that he's doing that makes you proud and makes you happy, that doesn't necessarily equate to being like a perfect student or something like that. So being helpful around the house or other things that he's doing well, that can help him to see himself outside the light of being this ideal student. Shutting him down in a moment when he's upset because he didn't get the perfect score is not going to be effective. It's just gonna, dig at him more and remind him that he wasn't perfect. You can just say something as simple as, I see that you're really upset with this score. I think you're great and I love you anyway. When you're ready to talk, come talk to me. And then outside of those moments, thinking about specific praises that you can give him to help improve that self-esteem.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. Also just kind of pointing out, like, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but just pointing out your own mistakes, owning what you do wrong as well. Perfectionism can be a tough one. It's a tough battle with anxiety. And, if it continues and it's really impacting the child's social functioning and, their academics at school, you might want to seek some counseling for that, but because it's tough. But yeah, just to piggyback off of what Tiana said, own up to the stuff that you mess up on, and nobody's perfect, and kind of just, making comments like that, not drawing too much attention to it or getting frustrated with the perfectionism either.
We have one more quick video we want to play. It's like 2 minutes.
If possible, yeah.
I don't even see the option to share, so.
So this
Oh, it
video,
has subtitles, so it doesn't matter.
this video really sums up the value of relationships.
Bueno, vamos a escribir la carta a los Reyes Magos. ¿Sabéis ya lo que vais a pedir?
Sí. Este año me portado muy bien. Una guitarra.
Estas las dejo aquí para mandárselas a los Reyes. Y ahora vais a escribir otra carta. Una carta a vuestros papás. ¿Qué les pediríais a vuestros papás esta Navidad? Vuestras hijas han escrito una carta a los Reyes Magos y esto para vosotros. Queridos papás,
Quiero que estés más tiempo conmigo, que hagamos más experimentos en casa.
Que nos hagáis un poco más de caso. Me gustaría que cenarais más con nosotros. Quiero que me hagáis cosquillas y que le veamos un cuento.
Quiero que estemos un día juntos.
No puedo. Quiero jugar, mamá. Que juegues conmigo, vaqueros. Quiero jugar más al fútbol conmigo.
¿Os sorprende que os pidan esto para Navidad?
Pues no, la verdad es que no nos sorprende.
A mí no tienen demasiado reticencia. El sentimiento de tratar de sustituir, pues llenarles ese pequeño vacío con un juguete que les
Pasar todo el tiempo que tenemos al máximo con nuestros hijos.
pensar que tú quieres darles todo lo mejor y lo mejor es que si lo estás pidiendo es porque lo necesitan.
Si solo pudieras enviar una de las dos cartas, ¿cuál enviarías? ¿La de los Reyes Magos o la de papá y mamá?
Uy, es una pregunta muy difícil. La de mamá. La de mis padres, papá y mamá.
All right, so a lot of the information that we've shared today about effective communication pulls from those evidence-based treatment programs and approaches that we've been trained in. So for more information on these, we've got the websites or the websites up for parent-child interaction therapy and child-adult relationship enhancement if you're interested in learning more. But, thank you so much for letting us join you today and talk to you about effective communication styles with your children.
Thank you all for attending this workshop, and to our panelists, thank you so much for your time, knowledge, insight, and dedication to our community. If you have any additional questions for our panelists or suggestions for future family connection workshops and webinars, please scan the QR code that's at your table, and then you'll be able to submit them in the survey. We will also include for our webinar folks in the chat a link to the same survey. And then, as a reminder, this workshop was recorded and can be found on vbschools.com. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Stop recording. Stop.